On today's episode of WatchJRGo, everything goes wrong and the WatchJRGo ranch is canceled. What is going on, guys? I am WatchJRGo, and today I am here at the property that today was supposed to be the WatchJRGo ranch. Unfortunately, everything went wrong, and I'm going to tell you all about it right now. And the reason that we're not closing on the house today, which was the actual, the moved closing date. First, just a quick preview of what it was. House is over there. There's a building back there that's sort of a building. It's actually two rail cars with a roof, and then a building with a single drive. It all needs torn down. It's worthless. There's a big building there with no concrete floor that I was going to make the main workspace. 3-car garage. It's actually 2 doors, but one of them is 2 cars deep. This is another building that needs torn down. It only has 1 paved drive in it. All the rest is dirt. And this is a house that needs torn down. This house here was built in like the 1940s or even earlier. It's all cinder block and the foundation's falling apart. The ceilings are falling down. Maybe you could fix it, but my plan was to tear basically all of that stuff down after we used it for storage and built a new place out on the property. Which leads me to a future issue of this property needing another $1 million to be what I wanted. So let's head back to the shop and talk about it a little bit. And I'm back in the shop at home because people were already driving by and looking at me weird since I was sitting at the property in front of the gates. And you know, out in the country, people will either show up or call the cops pretty quick if you're sitting around looking like you're doing something you're not supposed to be doing, which is one thing I like about the country, and another thing I hate because I was going out there to be left alone. But this is a video in 2 parts. One part will be the bank and the second part will be the property, but we'll probably talk about the property first. So obviously I just showed you guys the property. It was 10 acres with an option to buy 70. And there were 10 behind the house that included the pond, and the other 50 there were all field. And the field is kind of in a big L that comes back, wraps around the house, and has a tree line that zigzags and a little bit of stuff like that. And then there's also about 5 acres that are completely trash because they're part of a floodplain. And it technically floods all the time because it's like a ditch for the city. So while that is land that you have to mow, it's also worthless and you can't build anything or do really anything with it. There's super low elevation where that like creek / ditch runs. So that's honestly one of the things I didn't like. It wasn't a big deal, I didn't care about that. But we're just gonna talk about the things that I didn't like. And those things were the unusable land, and then the fact that I wanted the pond, and when I talked to the owners, I was like, what's it gonna cost to buy the next 10 acres? And they were like, $10,000 an acre, which is insane. That obviously the prices around here are more like 5, and 10 was very high, but they had an offer for 8, so I was happy to meet them in the middle at 9 to buy the 10 acres behind the house. And that was the plan, to buy that on the day we closed. And none of that was really a big deal. Obviously easy to deal with. I could deal with it down the road if we needed to. It didn't matter what happened with the extra land. I wanted it all, but I'd be happy to buy it all later. So I said, what's the deal with the rest of the land? How are you going to sell that? I know you said it's an option to buy with the property. I can't buy it right now, but I'd like to have it. And immediately they were like, all this land's gonna be houses. And I think that did it for me right there. I should have just bailed out of the deal, but I had a signed contract, so I was just gonna go through with it because I signed a contract and said I would buy it. And honestly, at that point, it doesn't even matter if I like it, I was just gonna do it. So the house was okay. We obviously toured the house, toured the whole property, went around it multiple times, drove a gator around all the land, and I had all the inspections done, sewer inspections, pumped out their septic tank, inspected the house, termite inspections. I mean, I have a lot of money invested in this deal that has now fallen through as of today, about $4,000, maybe more. So it's obvious I was very serious about buying the property. And I was just kind of trying to have a conversation with them about what it would take to have like a lockout where I could buy it all and they wouldn't offer it to anyone else. And they were like, no, it's all getting sold immediately. And you know what? They just put me in a very bad place right there and kind of kept pushing. So there was no way I could buy all of the land immediately. That would have made the price of this house about $1.2 million, which is insane because the house is worth maybe 100 on a good day. The house had a great kitchen, brand new, a great living room, brand new bathroom downstairs, which is also weird because that bathroom that was super nice was attached to the kitchen. Very strange. And then all of the bedrooms were horrific. So on close day, I was planning on having Eric there and their contracting company to knock down the first wall between two of the bedrooms and start redoing the master bathroom because it was horrendous. Obviously, all pink ceramic toilet, wall mounted. And a wall mounted toilet it's like prison, honestly. If you wall mount a toilet, it's either a business or a prison as far as I'm concerned. So all of that needed to be ripped out on the first day. It was definitely dated in all of the rest of the house, and I'm happy with dated. It doesn't bother me. If it's a workable house, I just need a place to sleep. But the master bedroom was so bad. It was about 10 by 10. And it barely fit a bed. You couldn't really walk around the bed in that room. So I obviously already earmarked about 10 with a budget of up to like 20 to do bathrooms because I know how fast the money disappears. You have no idea until they get in there. I was gonna just say, go for it, guys. Remodel this house so I have a place I can live in for the rest of my life. And then, like I said, all of the buildings were basically worthless. Without floors, and the ones that do have floors, like one of them has a horse stall. It's a dirt horse stall, maybe a chicken coop in there. And that's connected to a little tiny pad of concrete, smaller than this garage right here, smaller than a single car in this garage with a garage door on it. So that's, basically worthless. You can't get around a car once it's in there, so I can't work on it. And the building that I planned on using, like I said, needed to have a full concrete floor put in, and we were going to do a radiant floor, which means we'd have to run all of the lines for the radiant floor heat and put a boiler in there. It had a stem wall, it had a nice building, metal building, very old, no insulation, obviously. It'd probably need $75,000 to make it workable immediately. The other house would have needed knocked down, and I did plan on just building a brand new building out there like we had always discussed, but obviously that's gonna take a long time right now. I mean, you're out a year to get a big steel building built at the moment. So I had to do something immediately so we could keep working, even though, we can keep working here, but I don't wanna make 2 house payments for a long time. It's no big deal for like a transition, but it is a big deal for a year while I wait on a place to work. So it's definitely a tricky move to put the thing into service immediately because I'd have to pour a floor in that little place and get it done within the first 2 weeks, which I think I had all that lined up, and I was down to take that risk. It required me spending about $150,000 the first week. Basically, I'd have to write checks for all that the first week just to have a place that I could go back to work in. So unless you want to be a farmer and you're down to have dirt floors in your buildings, it's not really ideal. It definitely was not ideal for me, but I was down to make it work no matter what it took. So that is kind of where I ended up with the property. I felt like it was a horrible decision for me, but since I had signed the contract, I was gonna make the decision anyway and just come through and pay for it. And then there was the bank. So we were pre-approved for way more than that place would have ever cost. And the pre-approval is definitely like accurate and should have been absolutely fine. But as we got into financing it, the bank waited 30 days. We had 45 days to close. It was supposed to close last Friday. And then again, it was supposed to close today. And they had 45 days to put this deal together. We started the loan on the very first day. So they had all of that time. And the bank promised they would close in 21 days or they would refund my money or add like $2,500 to the closing cost, which was pretty crazy. It seemed like a good deal. And somehow, instead of making 21 days, they ended up not working on my loan until the Monday before, 2 weeks ago Monday, basically. That's when they started working on the loan. They came back to me that day and asked for all the additional paperwork. Obviously, if you've ever gotten a mortgage, you know what they want. They want, if you're self-employed, your 1099s. If you're employed, your W-2s. They want tax returns for 2 years, bank statements. They got all of that stuff the very first day. It was all sent to them immediately, and they were busy processing it then, I thought. And then obviously, they waited 30 days at least, and then they jumped back into my loan. And after I kind of got upset and told them that I was having probably the worst finance experience I've ever had in my life, after all of that, they came back and they said that we would need to bring more cash to close. I said, sure, no big deal. I had put $125 down as the down payment, and I was like, if you need some more, whatever it takes, we're gonna make this deal happen. Obviously, I needed to keep about $150 free so I could fix the rest of the place and make it usable, but I was also, again, willing to take an even worse deal and leave myself with less money if we could put the thing together. So they came back a few days later and said I need to bring $330,000 to close. And I'm sure they thought that I was going to say no right then and just bail on the deal because that's more than 55% of the property. But I called their bluff and I was like, fine, I'll do it. And honestly, I think I heard a gasp on the other end of the phone. And then they came back yesterday and said we need to bring 400 to close. And at that point, I was like, there's no way we're doing this. I'm done with this whole deal. Like, we're finished. You're way off the terms of the original contract. 125 made sense. It was obviously the right loan, and I was happy there, and we had plenty of room to, you know, buy projects, build a place that would be perfect for working on cars, motorcycles, doing all that fun stuff. And it would have left me with the pond so we could play with jet skis, watercraft, and you know, just basically work on all of the junk and store some of the junk that I like to work on, you know. Things like that cab over, it would have fit inside. Okay, that place had a big garage door. But I was gonna say couldn't go inside. We could park stuff outside, tons of room. It was just kind of ideal, and it was on a paved road, which is the most important part of the whole thing. I was honestly only paying as much as I was for the paved road. It's really hard to find any amount of land in Kansas with a shop and a house that's on a paved road. They're usually on at least a mile of dirt or something like that. And I was super pumped about it being on a paved road. But then again, it had a gravel road to the house, and I planned on paving all that. And I'm sure you guys, if you know anything about concrete, know that who knows where that ends up. Concrete is very expensive, but that is the reason the WatchJRGo ranch is canceled. So yesterday, after the bank got back with me with that nonsense, I was like, nope, I'm done. And we canceled the contract, and we're busy finishing up, you know, backing out of the whole deal. And hopefully I can get a refund on the application fee on the mortgage too, because they missed so hard. Honestly, it's just out of control how badly they handled that loan. So I'm hoping I'm only out about $1,000 in inspections. We're still waiting to find out. But that's where I'm at with the WatchJRGo ranch. I know everybody wants an update, and it's also the worst time you could possibly buy a house, and also the worst time you could possibly finance a house. I had a rate locked at 5.5, but I know it's nothing like the interest rates people paid in history. Interest rates were historically in like the 20s on housing loans. So we've had it good for a very long time. I realize that. I'm not just trying to say like, I want a low interest rate and that's it. I get where we're at, which is why I was fine with the 5.5. And at this point, if I try to do another deal, it's gonna be closer to 8, which is insane. So it's just a bad time to buy a house. It's also the worst possible time to have access to credit. I saw a chart from an economist the other day showing that I think in 08 it tightened, and then it got really easy to buy stuff again. The banks all eased off, and there was no regulation again for like a long time. They still check everything, you know? And right now, we're talking like in the last 6 months, it's become basically impossible to get credit, especially being self-employed. And that's really kind of what a lot of this came down to. It's all fixed. I think on Monday, they would have approved the loan back at the 125. We've got that all sorted out, but I was just completely done after they came back and told me to bring 400 today. I was like, that's it. I'm not bringing 400. It's not even a loan. You're not doing anything for me at that point. The point of a mortgage is that you get to keep some of your money and pay the bank to use their money. I'm no financial advisor. I'm no Michael Burry. I have no idea what to invest in or anything like that. But that is the whole point of a mortgage, is using the bank's money instead of just burning through all your own. So that's it. That's the entire story. I'm probably telling you guys too much. It's not like anyone needs to know that much of my business. But of course, I told you guys what the buildings cost, and I broke all of that down. And I figure if you know what the buildings cost, you've got an idea of what I sold them for. We had the cash to put the deal together, but it was a very, very bad deal that I was uncomfortable with, and that's why we pulled the plug on it. And it just didn't really make sense. Like I said, I was that committed to the contract that I was down to basically throw them an insane amount of cash, pay for over 55% of the property up front. And that wasn't enough for them, so that's where we hung up the towel. It was a cool place. It'll probably be back up for sale on Monday, and I'll start looking for a place that makes even more sense that I'm not in a rush to buy. And honestly, that's one of those things that when I showed up there, it was close to everybody. It was pretty close to Dad's shop, you know, his place where we work on a lot of stuff, like the trucks out there, the John Deere 420 stuff. It's all out there at his farm. And this wasn't too far away. It was pretty close to a city. It was on a paved road. It had a lot of stuff going for it, but it also made no sense because of what it was going to take to be usable. It's just one of those things where you've looked at, well, we looked at like 4 places, maybe 5, and none of those houses were ideal. Well, one of them was, but one of them it was kind of insane. That one was ideal, and it unfortunately is already sold. But after you look at like 5 houses, everyone's kind of tired of like scheduling showings and stuff like that. So you just make a bad decision so you can be done. And that's kind of where I was on this house at the beginning. I was super excited. It was a great decision. And as time went on, it became worse and worse and worse for me. But I was, like I said, I was that committed to going through with the deal. Anyway, that is it for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to head on over to shop.WatchJRGo.com for cool shirts, not like this. And please like, share, subscribe, do whatever you want to do. And I will talk to you next time. So we're back in the old garage for a little bit. I'm gonna try to make a little bit more room so we can do the swap and the Escalade. Obviously, that's a really tough one to do in this garage. But I've done it before many times, many engine swaps. So I'm definitely not scared of it. We just don't have any room. So I started listing some stuff for sale, like this 50, that's a 2022 with a 140 swap. I think that's gonna, well, it just got listed. Truffles, were you excited about the new place? Yeah, it seems like you were excited. What do you think about the chair? That's a great chair. All right, go explore. Anyway, time to start looking for the next place. We'll find something that's ideal, and I'm not just gonna sign a contract on the first house that seems pretty okay. That one checked, it seemed like it checked all the boxes. Like I said, the boxes got worse. It started unchecking its own boxes.